With a quorum present, I'd like to call this meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee to order at 6:30 p.m. This is a regular meeting for the month of October, so even though it's November 2nd, we're considering this our October meeting due to some scheduling conflicts. We had to shift the date around a little bit, and I do appreciate everybody's flexibility in being able to come up with a new meeting time. We will also be meeting at the end of November for our regularly scheduled November meeting. For this meeting, the agenda was posted in advance as required, and I would like to introduce myself, Darlene Mann, and the Budget Committee members present for this evening's meeting, which include Tony Sinizzi, Raul Blanchet, Dave Blinn, Brian Rader, and Tom Whalen. Tom Solon and Matt McGuire have excused absences for this evening, and I'd like to welcome our BA Kelly Seeley. If you will all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So at this time, I'll ask if there are any agenda adjustments. Seeing none. We'll move forward to appoint a process observer, which will be Brian for tonight. We were joking before the meeting whether we should actually pick the October person or the November person. The October person is Tom Solon, who isn't here this evening. So Brian, you and Tom can switch, and if you could be our observer for this evening, I'd appreciate it. We can move on to the approval of minutes. I did realize right before the meeting that I did not send out a copy of the draft minutes. We were all in receipt of them, but if folks don't feel comfortable addressing the minutes at this time because they weren't attached to the agenda package, we can certainly wait into the November meeting to to vote on the September minutes. So, is everybody okay with the minutes, the draft? Mm-hmm. Okay. So at this point, I'll take a motion to approve the September meeting minutes from Raul, seconded by Tony. Any comments, questions, additions, deletions? Seeing none. All those in favor of the minutes of the September meeting?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? Abstention? Dave is abstaining. So that's 501. Seeing no public this evening, we can move right on to the monthly results. So what I shared with everyone were two files. One is the FY23 year-end results after things have been adjusted and reviewed by the auditors. And then we also have the FY24 results as well. So Kelly, if you want to just give us a brief little overview of where we stand with those, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I will on the FY23 version first. If you want to just jump right to the page 2 in that box at the bottom, that really tells the story for the year. And the story really is about unfilled positions and why we have the unreserved fund balance that we do, or I should say underrun for expenses that we do. And then, so what we had budgeted for is to return to the taxpayers $200,000 to offset the tax rate. And what we actually came in at was $405,000 instead of $200,000. So it's much closer this year than it has been in the past, which is good news. The overages that I'd just like to highlight for you is really about vocational education. We had higher enrollment, which we didn't budget for that many kids. And we also had open, both of our van driver positions were open and unfilled for most of the year, if not all of the year. So we had to go to vendors, and that increased the cost fairly dramatically. So those are our overages. And really that's the story for FY23, unless you guys have questions.
So just to make it clear, $405,000 will be returned to the taxpayer.
That is the case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the rate setting is taking place across the state actually as we speak. There are some communities who finalized their tax rates, so these results obviously contributed to what the tax rate will be for Hollis and for Brookline. At this time, the formal announcement or the rate sheet of what the rates will be is not available. Brian mentioned before the meeting as selectman that Brookline did finalize its rate last night, so
Yeah.
I anticipate those sheets being completed shortly,
Sure.
and definitely by our meeting on November 30th, so we can kind of go over those rates where we expected them to be. Both communities had significant valuation changes, so that has a significant impact on the rate itself, but the appropriation and what's collected in taxes is based on what we voted on in March by ballot or at the district meetings and school district meetings, town and school district meetings. So that information is forthcoming, and we'll have probably a longer discussion about it. And as you all know, as we move through this process, we work through more and more aspects. Oh, hi, Tom. Of the budget and the revenue itself, and we'll get closer to estimating tax rates and tax rate impacts as the process unfolds. But for now, so Kelly, I noticed in the commentary there were savings in out-of-district services. So for special education, I know that's something that kind of, we do have just shifts that take place because of, families coming into and leaving the district, students matriculating up to the co-op, and realize that FY 2023 was a year where we did realize some savings across our population.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
those requiring
Yes.
special education and special student services.
And that's going to lead to a decrease in the budgeted number for next year?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
That's how we finished last year.
No, in fact, I think there's a few coming your way. Pretty
So
soon, yeah.
there were impacts as we built the budget for '24, and there are impacts as the budget's being built for '25 as well.
So new student impact.
I'm sorry?
There'll be a new student impact that,
There will be, due to changes in services, there will be impacts that increase student services in the FY '25 budget. Yeah.
Yep.
understood.
Okay, and then
Okay.
FY '24, we're 3 months into the fiscal year, so it is early, but as you can see, we're in a negative position right now. I would say that's primarily due to health and dental plan choices mostly by our new employees, but we did have a lot of our current employees or previous employees go from single plans to two-person plans. There were a large number of those, and there were some that went from having no plan to having a family plan. So that definitely has increased the health and dental line. And we are also deep diving into the health and dental lines, just to make sure there's nothing odd going on with postings that that we haven't caught.
So just really from a vacancy position, does the district find himself in a position with more of its previous vacancies filled moving into this year?
Definitely this year than last year. I think we may, I'm not sure if I remember if it's 1 or 2 positions, I think, that are currently unfilled, that the current teachers are taking like an extra section to cover those positions.
And do we make adjustments for those extra sections that the teachers take?
Do we make adjustments?
Like,
What
do
you mean?
they receive additional
Yes,
pay?
there's a formula for
Right,
taking
based
on an
on-
extra section, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the contract stipulates like planning periods and time with students and things like
Exactly.
that. And so if they take additional time with students or give up their planning period and things like that.
Yes,
That's
they
why the
get
adjustments
additional
are made.
funds based on a calculation that factors all those things into it.
Right,
yeah.
so in effect, we have it's the vacant position almost that's kind of paying for maybe the extra time that we.
Yeah, I
and then
mean, there's not a
little-
the
it's not a-
benefits are not a
No,
factor,
and
but
it's not
yeah.
a dollar for dollar offset,
No.
I understand that, but there's a little bit of,
Yes, there is some additional funds that go towards that
Mm-hmm.
vacancy.
Okay.
How many teacher vacancies are there in
I-
the two schools?
I'm not sure.
Is it
If I
minimal or
remember,
a lot?
it's minimal. I think it's
Oh.
1 or 2.
It's changing daily.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not sure what to say, because it does change.
Yeah, day to day.
I think we just got a new one, vacancy, I mean.
What about those drivers that you mentioned?
The
How much-
drivers?
You said the drivers that
The
were
vans?
driving the
The vans
vans.
for the special
The-
ed.
Oh, the drivers, those
Yeah.
kind of drivers.
The
Yes,
drivers,
those
yeah.
are both full.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
Yes, those
Oh,
were
good.
filled at the beginning of the school year, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we shouldn't have any vendor costs unless, something happens with, if they leave us for whatever reason.
Okay.
And so right now, in that negative position, it means that we can't fund any of our trusts or contingencies for the following year. So we are working to get through this position, negative position, and I'm sure we'll be in a better place as time goes on, and we always are as time goes on. So that is the story at the moment. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so tonight, at our October meeting, we spent some time talking about the, first pass of the budget that we have and developing preliminary guidance. That typically involves discussion of the meeting calendar, which I understand from Kelly is still a work in progress. That calendar combines all 3 districts of their deliberative sessions, their public hearings, their election days, their district meeting days, and in addition to having all of that meet within statutory parameters. It's quite an exercise to get it all together without even considering individual availability and things like that. So we're still waiting on that. I know Kelly's working diligently with our moderator and across the district to get that all together, and legal counsel to make sure it fits all of the parameters. So as soon as it's available, I'll share it with you. Just kind of to keep in mind, our public hearing is typically that first week-ish of February. So I don't think this group has ever gone past like Valentine's Day. So
not
just
this
kind of
group,
keep in mind, it'll be that kind of beginning part of February. And similarly, with the exception of the COVID years, usually by mid-March, we've gone through all the meetings and elections and ballot voting and things like that. So just kind of keep your calendars open, and we should be hearing about that in the next week or so.
We hope, yes.
And the contract agreement with the professional staff should be done by then.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know the whole, calendar of that. Tom Solon's our school board representative and is on the negotiating team. And as we've kind of put out there that we do as a budget committee like to see the TA, the redlined version, or kind of where the contract is, eventuating by the January meeting, which is the 4th week in January, which backs right up into that public hearing date. I think we did have one occasion where the negotiations kind of extended, and I believe at the public hearing, the board was meeting in advance of that to approve the contract, and we had an overview at the public hearing, but we've never had to have a second public hearing because negotiations extended, so I think we're just all kind of working within that same window. Maybe in a few minutes, if I don't by any means need Tom to breach any confidentiality agreements, but I'm sure the process is underway and, will be unfolding for the school board. So what I did share with everyone, this is a kind of busy time of year as, certain elements and inputs to the process become available. And I did share with everyone before we get to the budget, 3 enrollment views. One was just for Hollis, one was for Brookline, and one was a consolidated. So while we have all 3, we tend to focus on, obviously, the consolidated one, which includes, the Hollis and Brookline information. And it does show, historical and information moving forward. Typically, when we present information, we tend to just look at the most immediate 5 years, and after that, the trends start to kind of fall and shift and things like that. So as we're going into 24-25, the planning year on page 6 of the consolidated document, if you look at grades 7 to 12, you'll see that a very slight, like just over 1% increase in the population expected to go from 1128 across both schools to 1143, and then the projection dips back down by about 2% to 1118 in the following year for FY26. And it's really not until 5 years and on that we see the impact of the K-6 population shifts finally moving up to the co-op. So I know that each community, in addition to the valuations, have had significant growth and building and all kinds of things happening in both towns, but it does take time for all those little ones to kind of get up to the high school, and middle school. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, would like
Yes,
to.
so what is the current enrollment for those two schools?
The anticipated would be 1143.
Yeah, but what is it now, today?
11, well, based on this report, 1128.
Is that the NASDAQ report?
This is the NASDAQ.
Do you know what?
I don't know what our
In
October 1st
we actually
enrollment.
sent them in.
Yeah, those should be accurate, I would
Yeah,
think,
it usually ties right to this, so
Okay.
1128.
So 1128 is the actual
So
number, should be the
grades-
same as that. the starting
Grades
point.
7 and 8 are
Close.
375, and grades 9 through 12 would be 753. So just as a reminder, these are enrollment numbers. It's a little bit different than the average daily membership that's used to calculate cost per student and adequacy. It's relatively aligned, but it isn't a direct, the numbers that are used for those two state reports and determining adequacy for the district is not specifically the actual enrollment number. There's a calculation and a lot of attributions that get assigned to each student, and they use average daily membership and residence to calculate those kind of financial impacts across the state, and it's a consistent approach across all the districts. So it would be about a 1% increase going into next year. And since we are, we do a portion between the two towns. Average daily membership is important because it's a significant part of the calculation to apportion the appropriation, and the ADM used for that purpose is based on the prior year's end of year enrollment. So as we kind of look and put estimates out there, I personally take a look between where we ended current year, what we're anticipating, and if the enrollment number and the ADM were close or far apart, kind of make an assessment on what the best number to use, and anticipating where we'll actually end the school year in anticipation of the next year's impact. So it's always pretty close, and we do the best we can with the data that we have. So, okay. Okay, so the parts of reviewing the budget and getting into the preliminary guidance discussion, I also shared with everybody a report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the CPI, most recent CPI information, which we can talk about as we consider guidance. But I wondered if it might just be a good idea to have just an overview of round 2 of the budget that was shared with everyone, maybe some focus on the new items tab. The district is on the second round of new items. Just kind of gives us an idea of some of the priorities of the district, and we'll kind of have a discussion about where the budget looks at this stage, and then a guidance discussion on our thoughts and how we want to proceed with offering guidance to the district on how to move forward.
Okay, so I'll go through the new items spreadsheet, as Darlene said, and I'm going to highlight a few things rather than mention every single thing in here. But if you see something that you would like to talk about or need more information about, please stop me. So under the heading of academics, in the middle school, one of the big dollar items is a cool down zones. There's actually 2 of them. and that's a cost of $30,000 at the moment, the estimate. Those are new, they're going in all of our schools. It's just a sign of what is happening in our populations, and there is a need for rooms for kids to calm down and
So that
cool down.
aligns to like the mental health strategy for the
Yes.
district and
Yeah.
to support students.
It absolutely falls in
And
line with
it
that
isn't just
support.
necessarily for, students receiving like special services, it's across
No,
the population.
it's not a special ed specific thing, no, not at all.
So it has nothing to do with air conditioning, it has to do with
No, it's
behavior.
the human being cool down,
Yes.
not the air, yes.
Space.
Right. And then we also are finding that our bus costs for the DC trip are going up as everything else in our lives is going up. So that $20,000 is reflecting what they're seeing or expecting to come our way as we go into the next year. Those are for the middle school. The high school, we need to invest in some storage for our performing arts group. They really are struggling with storage and safe storage is, because there's storage, all right, but it's all over the place sometimes. So this is a real need in the high school. And then, of course, we always have textbooks. I feel like this might be the lowest amount of textbooks we've had since I've been here. It's only $18,000, and you can see what those textbooks are. Going on to personnel, in the middle school, we have an after-school academic support, which is a direct result of not having our ESSER funding any longer, because we were using that to support this type of program, so that goes into our budget now. And then I'm sort of putting the cart before the horse here, but we have funding for a back security entrance monitor, which I'll explain more when we get to the facilities section, but this is another person that would be hiring for about 215 days, 8 hours a day with benefits. Moving on to special ed personnel, we have a para in both districts, or both schools, sorry, needed. One is for the Choices program in the high school, and one is just a regular para, a regular special ed para in the middle school, and that's based on student need.
That's a quick question.
Yes.
Or you want to wait till the end?
No, that's fine.
We're talking about the backdoor security.
Mm-hmm.
Is that impacted by the police officer we have in the building?
No, this was in the works. It's really because it's not a super secure location, and we want to make it super secure.
Okay.
Okay, I'll skip over new computer equipment because there's a minor thing there, and then replacement computer equipment. So we're finally at that point where all of the Chromebooks that we received into the district through ESSER funding, through all of the different fundings that we had during COVID, to include an E-rate, a chunk of E-rate funding that went towards those Chromebooks. We're finally at that point where we have to start replacing them. So we are now at a one-to-one because of all of that funding, and now we have to start budgeting for that. So we talked about so many different versions of how to do that, what's the best way to do that. One of them is included in round one, where we thought maybe starting a expendable trust would be the way to go. But the more we looked at it, the more we decided to approach it like we do for our staff devices, which is roughly speaking fund 25% every year. So that is the way we landed, and these are the numbers as a result. So in this year, we're projecting purchasing 302, which is roughly 25% of our population. And this method will keep the budget more consistent over the years rather than seeing big spikes up and down.
So we're not looking at big other like server maintenance or anything like that?
Not at this time. I think that
Focus is-
comes next year.
Great. With another 25%.
Yeah, probably something like that. And then in the high school, we have engineering laptops that will be replacing. The ones we have now are at end of life. And then in both schools, we are looking to replace, or not replace, but add to the interactive flat panels that we've been purchasing. This would be another phase of that, if you will, 3 in the middle school and 4 in the high school.
And just to clarify too, it isn't just like the price of the Chromebook itself, there's licensing and
Yes.
maintenance agreements that go like on a
Yep.
per device
Yep,
basis.
sure.
So,
And
So quick question. When you say end of life, what are we talking about? 2.5 years, 4 years, 5 years? What?
I think those are either 4 or 5 years this year. I forget exactly when we purchased them.
In the past, they've been 3 years, and then they stopped supporting them.
And that's what I believe we're facing with these as well.
They had a short, they had a period where they agreed to extend the support of software, but what I was told was that we tend to lose them for wear and tear before we lose them for software expiration. They being brought forth, back and forth to school every day just takes a toll on them, and they're happy if they get 3 years out of them.
Right. So these are definitely due.
So they figure it's about $100 a year per student if it's a $300.
So, I mean, I don't want to get into the weeds here, but how much do we pay for the maintenance contract for all these?
We do not have one.
We don't have
We
a
don't have
maintenance
one.
contract.
It's just the basic warranty and that's it?
Yep, they refuse to, we've checked into it, and they will not insure them. If it gets damaged by misuse, the student and family have a financial responsibility, and for the most part, that is being honored. But for just normal wear and tear, with being used every day throughout the school year for multiple years, they just physically are not standing up to the full potential that someone like you or I might get out of it.
And we do here repair like keyboards and screens.
So you have staff on board
Yes.
to actually take care of,
You're looking at
All
one
right.
of them.
so just one person or two?
Well, for each school.
One
yeah.
for each school,
Yeah.
okay.
Plus, we also have the director of technology and the network manager as well.
Okay, so they can collectively help,
Yep,
okay.
absolutely. One other important thing to note about replacement computer equipment is on the staff laptops. We are going to be moving, we've already started this in Brookline, and CSDA is more or less there. They were sort of the guinea pig for us this year, and that's to move our teachers from laptops like you guys are using to Chrome laptops, which is a higher level of a Chromebook. And that's a significant savings. It's around $200 to $300 in savings per device. So it's gone well at CSDA, so we've decided to continue doing that then. Shared services, we are increasing our contract there because it's just hard to keep up with the complexity of the network, security, storage, backup systems. All of that is changing so rapidly that we are employing some help there to make sure everything runs smoothly.
Just have a quick question. I'm
Yes.
thinking about. Do we have like a hand-me-down program where if we get something like the Chrome laptop going to staff after so many years, instead of turning them in or whatever, move them over to maybe the high school or, in other words, get some more useful life out of it if they're a better product to start off with?
No, we don't, but I think we will be starting with the student Chromebooks, and we can easily start it with the laptops as well, the Chrome laptops, and that is a buyback. there are many companies out there now that will purchase your, quote, used and ready to go on the truck, if you will,
Yeah.
devices, and we could get anywhere from $30 a device to $100 a device, depending on the condition. So we are moving in that direction.
Okay, that, as opposed, we see $30 or $100, but we have a laptop that might be, with regard to its usefulness, worth more than that, and passing them over to someone else could save us.
By the time that we are going to transition them over, we try to get as much use as we can, especially the staff laptops, because they don't get as damaged as much.
Yeah.
So by the time they're ready to stop being used, I don't think there's going to be that kind of value left.
Just a question.
Yeah, no, it's a good one.
We do it with desktops, though. For instance, when the classes that need the latest and greatest to run CAD software and things like that
Sure.
are no longer possible and they get upgraded, those get moved down.
That's true. Okay, then moving on to athletics, the thing to note there is the esports startup. The district is looking to become part of what the NHIAA has started, and that is an esports program using a couple of different softwares, and they have competitions and are treated like athletes in the schools that do this. And it definitely attracts kids that really don't have a lot of opportunities for teamwork and leadership. And in the schools that are doing that in our state, it's a very successful program. So we're looking to join that. Under the heading of safety and compliance issues, this is where the back entrance security renovation comes in. This is what we are anticipating the cost will be for, if you've been to the back door, you've got this single bank of doors. We're wanting to add a second bank of doors and then a security office that will allow people to be buzzed in, just like the front door, really. But it's the back door version of that. So that's what we're looking to install.
Would that be a staff office?
Yeah, a staff person would man that security office and let people in and out. Because the situation as it is now is not as secure as we'd like it to be. We are aware of individuals letting other individuals in through those doors because the supervision is just not there. So we want to look to improve that.
So Kelly, there are some, I'm sure you're aware of the SAFE grants.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to even have a note here. We did apply for the SAFE grant already, and this is the project that we've included in our grant.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And that's for the one that they was there one due either October 31st or November 30th?
Yeah, it just came out the 30th,
yeah.
or the 31st, one of the two. And it ends in November as far as
Yeah.
applying for it, right?
Mhm.
And each school can get a maximum of $100,000 per category. So that we have submitted this as for this district or for this school.
So let me get this straight. So in going from round one to round two, and seeing the number drop from 163,000 to 11,000, you're assuming that you're getting that grant?
Wait, where are you seeing 163?
He's looking at the middle school.
I'm looking at the
We're
middle
talking
school
about
as an
radios.
example.
The radios
No.
are pulled
Oh, the radios were removed. That's why the difference in the cost.
Yeah, so does that mean that for round two, to defray costs that we're not gonna include it? Is that,
No, that was just chosen to.
Can that be submitted for,
I think the thought is that we'll do it if we get external funding for it.
Okay.
But we're not going to do it if we have to pay it out of pocket.
for
Okay.
now?
For now, yes.
For now.
Well,
Because
and
it could be argued that security is a critical category here.
right, and that we did actually apply for a SAFE grant the last round for the radios, and we did not get it. So it seemed to us that most of the schools that got grants
Yeah.
last time around were on access control. So we elected to go with access control for all 6 schools for what we were submitting for for the grants.
But I do think it's been reprioritized from a must-have to a want.
Okay.
The radios, you mean? Yeah.
Because the reason it was in before was it was originally categorized as a must-have. We're gonna, if we don't get the grant, we'll buy it. I'm seeing this now for the first time. It looks as though that thought process may have changed.
Well, and it was competing with the back entry door, and I think that's really the priority for this year. And the other thing about the radio system is it's a all or nothing, so it's all 3 districts have to do it at the same time, or it does not make as much sense. And we know at least one of our other districts is not going to have a lot of extra money. So the only other thing here I'd like to highlight is also the sidewalk that we are discussing that would go from the weight room to the stop sign. So to try to, that's the carpool area, so we're trying to minimize safety issues there by installing a sidewalk. I'm sorry?
Which stops?
So if the weight room, and you go all the way around the back to the stop sign.
Isn't a walkway there now?
No.
Hasn't that been on for years too?
Is it what?
That been discussed for years?
It
The
has.
Sidewalk safety issue out
It
there?
has been on this
Yeah,
before,
that's
yes.
fine,
It hasn't been widely talked to the point where it got to the board, though.
Right, right.
Well, I mean, the board has access to all of our
No, I mean,
rounds, so,
it hasn't been pushed.
no, probably not.
I will say, if anyone hasn't driven up to the high school, there have been some really nice changes with paving the lower lots
Yeah.
and, I called it a speed bump. My son was like, it's a speed table, but it is like a crosswalk and, area to kind of slow down.
Yes.
The 2 lanes that go around the back. It's really coming together. It's been a
Yes.
nice kind of phased approach to kind
Yes.
of improving the flow and, newly painted lines and things like that. And I think it all just, it's all
Yep.
coming together.
Yep, we're
so.
trying.
And I think with there actually being 2 distinct lanes now,
Mm-hmm.
Out back behind the school?
yeah, there's a priority because now there isn't the same ability for the theoretical single lane to also have pedestrians there. So they're trying to make the vehicle flow out of the back parking lot more efficient, but you lose the ability for it to be a shared lane.
So where does the 2 lanes end coming around the school? Back down
At
to
the
main
stop
entrance?
sign, at the stop sign.
On the side by the field, or at the
Yeah.
stop sign by the road?
Yeah.
The stop sign by the
Oh.
lacrosse field and
Gotcha.
graduation is.
Right.
And then it goes back to 1 lane?
Well, I
Yes.
guess not the
At least
lacrosse
it
field.
stops being striped.
Yeah, let's put it that way, yes. I don't think it's as wide in some areas.
No,
yeah.
but the whole pavement situation with the paving of the faculty lot
Mhm.
and some of the other things, there's some ambiguity there.
Sure, yeah, there is. Okay, so moving to the facilities maintenance, you'll see in both schools $175,000 there as a placeholder for whatever we decide to do, whether it's replacing the piping for the oil tanks or whether there's an alternative. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that because I'm sure Tom and Raul will fill you in on all of that.
We're going to let you do it.
No, I think you should do it. So that's really the biggest thing, other than one other thing at the very end of that section, and that is the special ed van. They are asking for another one because we're using, yeah, go ahead, Raul.
No, finish your thought. I was gonna make a statement here regarding the items for the oil tank piping and all that. Like we discussed last night, everything is contingent on the results of the state test.
Right. Okay, so special ed van, we are using it so much for life skills type events that they're finding a lot of conflicts. No, I want that. No, I need it. No, I need it. So this is the solution to try to get all of the programming in that they want to get in for their students.
So how many will we have with that?
That would be 2 special ed vans, and then we have 2 vocational vans, if we get this. So it's
Right.
4 total.
How many
Is there-
drivers for all?
I'm
Is-
sorry?
We have drivers for all?
Well,
the
the
three?
special ed vans are staff driving because they're taking
That's what I
kids
thought,
to
okay.
whatever life skill event that they're
Yeah.
programmed to go to. And then the vocational vans are for, we have to hire drivers for that,
Right, to
yeah.
bring them to the schools? for-
Yeah,
Gotcha.
right, and those are filled currently.
Are any of those vans being used after school for sports and things?
Occasionally athletics uses them, but
Who drive, the coaches drive at that point?
yeah, I believe that's.
So we're only hiring for vocational.
Right, that's right. Okay, and then I'm going to skip over the warrant article box just so I can talk about the maintenance expendable trust box. And we have several things going on there. The elevator in the high school is going to cost $195,000 to retrofit, and it's approaching the time to do that. So we've decided to put away, if you will, in our trust. We did that for the middle school, not library, elevator. So same concept there, that we would put $65,000 away for 3 years and be prepared at that time to make that change or do that retrofit. A scissor lift, we already have one in the school, but this one is more useful, and it will come with a trailer because we can use a scissor lift. We need to use a scissor lift in all of our schools, so the other schools can pay for the use of this scissor lift, which we don't have the ability to do that with the one we have, and the one we have is old. And
So what would it be used for?
anything that's up high, like in the gym, if there's a repair that needs to be made there, we've used it for a number of things. Outside, there might be a repair on the outside of the building that we need to use it for. And specifically, it's a lot of gym things, really, because CSDA, we had to rent one there recently because of a repair.
That can all be rented?
Right, but the cost of renting it is going to be a lot more than.
It's about $400 a day plus delivery costs.
And how often do we need to use them?
Probably
A lot.
multiple times a week.
Are you looking at a new one or a used or?
No.
A new one,
I mean,
yeah.
if you don't have one, there are things that you can sometimes do with a ladder. But from the standpoint of efficiency and safety, they're great.
Right,
So if you don't have one, there's a lot of things that don't get done.
exactly.
If you've got it, then, you probably, I suspect they'll probably put it on rotation and bring it from facility to facility and take care of the things. You can do the lights, you can do the speakers, you can do any painting or repairs, and all that. And then there's periodic stuff, especially for areas of the roof and the overhang. Anything that's at an elevated point where you'd otherwise have to get specialized ladders or rent that or a cherry picker.
What
So-
size you, oh, sorry.
So
What's-
wait, did you say we need 2 of them? One for
No,
each?
no, just
We
one.
have
We have
one.
one now. It's
Okay.
just
It's
not
an old-
adequate for a
It's
lot of things.
It's an
Okay.
old one.
Yeah,
Okay.
But in addition, we don't have any means of transporting it. So part
Yes.
of this is purchasing a trailer, because at the high school, we now have a truck that was bought a couple of years ago. So we have the ability to move it throughout the SAU.
Okay.
What size, and is it electric or gas?
you ask hard questions.
Look, it's the place that we rent from, Rento's having a big sale this week.
Oh,
So I
well,
can
this
look
isn't
into it.
FY25 yet, so. But keep that in mind. And then we have a roof set, the phase 9 out of 10, we're getting really close to the end of the high school roof sections. We have another one of those. And we also would like to replace the front pavement here for the sidewalk. It's, as you, I'm sure, have noticed, has a lot of ups, like a roller coaster with a few divots involved. So it definitely is time to replace that. And our turf parking lot needs lighting. That's another one here. And I think, not quite last, we have interior camera updates for the middle school and exterior camera updates for the high school. So that is everything so far.
That's a lot.
And not everything will probably make it, but those are the highlights.
I actually just had a question.
Yeah.
I've lost track of what year we are with the field.
Oh, the turf field?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, so have I.
So just something to think about. I mean, I know
Yeah.
we finance it anticipating a certain lifespan. Eventually, it does need to be replaced.
Yes.
And so we hope we get life in addition, past the time that we've financed it for. But
Yes.
then it's another large expense, probably 75% of the original cost
Yeah,
or so,
probably.
thereabouts. And just a thought, I mean, I don't know that this is the year for it, but.
No, I know it's
um,
not the year for it.
Something
and-
to just, I'm sure it will come up eventually.
Oh,
But
yes.
again, I'll take a look at the bond schedule, see where lease.
Yeah,
lease
and
is, see
I
where
can
we
check
are.
in with the athletic director to see what he has to say about that. He'll know, I'm sure.
So refresh me again regarding how we pay from the main maintenance expendable trust.
Say that one more time.
So, for example, is there already money set aside for that? For some of these
Well-
expenses?
Well, okay, see the second line, it says $300,000
Yes, so
FY25
that will be-
warrant, so it's a warrant article.
So
That
we do have,
gives-
so there's currently a balance of 161,677.
And once the warrant article is if it is passed, then during the next year.
The cycle, we have
we-
almost that amount available for the next round of.
Right,
of,
exactly. And then
okay.
we actually send those dollars to the trustee of the trust fund, and he holds that money with other investments that he has until we ask for reimbursement for when we spend out of that.
So basically, the 159,677 will come out of the, what's available there, 161,677.
Yes. Well,
No.
that's the remainder after. So you take the 161, then you add 300, and then you subtract all of those things,
Right.
and what's left is the 159.
Oh, okay,
They
all
want
right.
to flow,
Maybe-
they want to flow the 300 through in the course of 1 year.
Spending about 300,000.
And does
Yeah.
it make sense to show those as negatives?
I can, I mean, I
Does
haven't.
would that help for
Yeah,
just an
yeah.
understanding?
Okay, sure.
Is there a reason why
The
they
drawdown.
want to put, that they've decided they really want to put it in the trust rather than put it in the budget?
Because it increases the budget for one thing, and,
Right, but they're talking about spending it next year.
yeah. I mean, we have modeled what we do in the co-op from what they do in Hollis for many, many years, so we're just doing the same thing.
It's not what they do in Brookline, is it?
Well, it is actually,
Brooklyn
as much, town, no. No, I'm talking about the Hollis School District when I say
Well,
Hollis.
it's all the same it's all the same people in the school district, and I have no opportunity to voice an opinion except at the budget hearings and the meetings, but here I get a chance to do it twice a month.
So we will look at the CIP, the capital improvement plan, by one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
upcoming
that's
iterations, and
usually-
we can have a, ongoing
that's-
conversation about the point you're raising, Tom, compared to like historically how that everything started with the maintenance expendable trust and kind of how we've gotten to where we are. But
Like the 65,000 is appropriate because you're accumulating it and accumulating it. The roof, is that something that we can put off for a year? It doesn't really matter whether it happens next year or not?
Well, I'd hate to miss out on a year because
Right.
we've got the
So-
middle school
so
coming up
things-
right behind it.
So things like the roof, and if we think we want this, this lift, and some of the other things that we really want, it would be my recommendation to put it in the budget as a budgeted item. If it makes it through the round, great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. But these are things that we're not trying to accumulate, and I thought the spirit of a trust fund is to build up a balance that later can get drawn down. By doing it this way, you put things in, and if the whole warrant gets shot down, then you run the risk of not having any money for it, whereas if it's in the budget, you have the option of juggling money around to pay for it.
Well, it's likely that we wouldn't be able to put half of these things, if not all of them, into the budget because we have to meet guidance.
Well, guidance might be different if these were in the budget and they were viewed as being needed.
Well, that's not a decision for me to make.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes.
I see often when we have the meetings, a lot of people get really upset, particularly as the night goes on and they see these numbers and all of a sudden they don't want to see any more. And a lot of the times it's because they don't understand that if they don't spend the money, it's going to cost them probably even more down the line.
Certainly.
In looking at some of these items here that have rental expenses or some expense, so the idea is to look at it and say over a course of 3 or 4 years, it cost us X. That X is greater than the cost of buying the equipment that we need. And I think something like that would go a long way to the community. That way they can see that, oh, we're actually going to save money.
Okay.
Initially, we have an expense, but it's going to be offset by operational costs or, these unexpected costs because we have to. So looking back historically and then looking forward, kind of projecting from that, I think would go a long way for the people in the town to see that this is a smart expense.
Okay. That's a good suggestion.
We will add, as I said, the capital improvement plan, so probably by the 3rd or 4th round, and we'll be able to see like a 5-year view of where, how these
Exactly.
expenses fit into a 5-year view and things like that. So there's more to the story than just kind of where we are at round 2 at this point. Okay, so Kelly jumped over the warrant article
Oh,
piece. So
I
I will
didn't go
just
back,
add
sorry.
that we will, the other articles under consideration are the HEA, the professional staff agreement, the HESA agreement, which is the 4th year because we extended the contract last year. So it's
Yes.
like the 4th year of the contract. There'll be an article for the SAU assessment. We just talked a little bit about the maintenance trust. You had mentioned the possibility of an IT trust, but I put that aside for now.
Yep.
The contingency, and we have kind of the rolling special education trust with a current balance of $250,000 of it. And that was kind of a number we put out there to say, if we get it to that point, that at the time when we started, it felt like a good place to start. I'm not sure if 250 is still the reasonable place to be, given changes in needs or costs of out of district placements and things like that. So I do think it is on, another 25,000 is on the list of potential additional warrant articles. I'm sorry, I was looking at the FY24 final versus where we are.
Right.
So for round 2, it's been reduced to 0.
Right, and I can add that we did discuss with Lauren this summer when we started the budget process that she thought 250,000 was a very solid number,
Solid
that
number.
we don't
Okay.
need to keep adding to it at this time.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so all of that that Kelly shared rolls into the superintendent's view, which is a very long, 675-line document. It's the view that's shared in the school board packet on a monthly basis, and rolls up, by account, compares various rounds to the FY24 budget. And that gets then rolled up into the budget trend view, which is just a long historical view of the budget that the budget committee has used to kind of collapse and consolidate that longer expense file into various categories. So from there, we've overlaid an FY25 guidance tab, which gets flows to the first page, which is the guidance multiplier tab, and then we can. There are 2 columns right now in the FY25 tab that kind of show preliminary and a November guidance, which we kind of call final guidance. Right now, they have all the same numbers. I will say the numbers are multipliers, things like that, they're in there to make the model work, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. They aren't my interpretation of what it should or shouldn't be. It's, again, kind of a starting point for a discussion.
Are they
So,
on board docs? Do you know, is
So-
that document in board
this
docs?
is not on board docs. I sent it out
I
this
saw, I
morning.
did it in an email, but I didn't know if it was also in board docs.
I did not put it on board docs. It's an working Excel document, and I was able to just get it out this morning and figured email was the best way to contact everybody with that.
So this is what you're looking
Yeah,
at,
you can-
round
No,
one, no?
No.
This
Oh,
is the
okay.
superintendent's view.
Well, I said the
Round two.
superintendent's view, right. Now I'm working forward I sent out a view this morning.
That's different from this.
That is different from that. That includes the preliminary guidance tab.
Okay,
So it's all the same data, no numbers of that content changed. It's really just the calculation of the multiplier. And for the discussion of preliminary guidance, I do apologize for getting it out so late. I'm typically ahead of the day of the meeting. But there were some factors, and I just needed to spend a little more attention with some of the formulas and the linkages and things like that.
You sent that this morning?
so how are those numbers different from these?
They're not.
They're not, okay.
But if we remember, what preliminary guidance does is
Yeah.
kind of builds from the FY24 budget to the FY25 budget, and allows us to have a conversation of kind of our calculation of the budget committee view of where the budget could potentially be. So what it does is take the FY24 full budget, after all warrant articles were passed in March, that's our starting point for where the budget is for the year, takes out items that historically we felt shouldn't have been impacted by inflation. So they include things like the contingency and trust funds, debt service, special education, the SAU budget allocation, and NHRS. Take those out to arrive at a new guidance base, have a little bit of a conversation about, a multiplier that in the past has been CPI driven, and then look at adjustments from that lower baseline number. So in this case, our $28.252 million budget for the co-op is reduced to $17,400,000 essentially. Of that, approximately 48%, so just under 50%, is CBA salary-related items that are going to be addressed by contracts and collective bargaining agreements. And we take that percentage, apply that to the CPI, and come up with an adjusted multiplier. So rather than apply 2.6, in this case, the way it's stated right now, 2.6% to a lower budget, we would apply a factor, suggest a factor of 1.34% against that lower budget, which would yield an increase of about $233,000. We're adding back the estimates from FY25 of what we think those transfers, debt service, special education items, and NHRS would be. We'll have a conversation with Kelly about any guidance relief items, and we come up with a new budget number. So in this case, based on a 2.6% CPI reduced to the guidance multiplier of 1.34%, Budget Committee would be recommending a preliminary guidance of $27,475,282 as the operating budget, which is $1.2 million below the requested operating budget that was presented in round two. Then the lower part of the spreadsheet.
And that number that was from round two is 28,689,009.
Yes.
Okay.
Just the operating budget piece. And then the additional warrant articles get added in. Again, we don't even have a placeholder in for the HEA contract on either view. And so the kind of total requested budget from the superintendent's view is $30,382,937. Just verify that. Yep. And right now, once the preliminary guidance or operating budget amount flows through those additional articles, Budget Committee would be at $29,169,210. Again, still a $1.2 million difference. Over in column E, we've had a conversation as we go through this cycle about whether starting with FY '23 actuals is a better starting point. And so what column E, the calculated FY '25 attempts to do is take where we finished FY '23 and adding in things that were passed with the FY '24 budget. So we know there's going to be contractual increases. We know there's a change to CIP, there's a contingency, there were transportation changes, different bond payments, things like that. I overlaid a staff adjustment, which is an assumption on my part that the district is fully staffed. One of the main reasons for the underrun in '23 was due to understaffing. So I added back salaries and benefits from unfilled positions and made kind of the same ins and outs as to be consistent with the guidance view. And what's happened probably for about the past 3 years is looking at this calculated view has gotten us to about within $100,000 of the other view that we've traditionally worked with. So from a budget committee perspective, just a reminder, in the past years when we've looked at it this way, we felt like, well, the 100,000
It's insignificant.
is not, material enough to, have us, go back and look at that view. And we've kind of stuck with that original preliminary guidance model.
So did you calculate it this time with, starting from
Yeah,
the actuals?
yeah.
And they're still within 100,000 of
Yep.
each other?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
101,776.
Where is that showing?
I'm sorry?
Where is that?
Column E on the guidance multiplier
Oh,
spreadsheet, the first.
Oh, guidance
The other.
multiplier.
Yeah, the first
the other
tab.
one, yeah.
We kind of, we'd start on this one in October, move to the next one in November.
I don't have that file in my,
You don't have it?
in front of me, that's okay.
Oh, here.
No big deal.
Is the guidance multiplier in one of the spreadsheets, or is that the name
I'm
of the
sorry?
Is that in one of the spreadsheets?
It's
in
one
the
of the spreadsheets. It's called guidance multiplier. It's the first tab
That came
from
this
what was
morning.
sent out this morning.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
October 30th.
Oh, did I include Tom? Now I'm like wondering, did I include everybody?
Nope.
I thought I had everybody.
Last one I have
It's on
is
the
October
spreadsheet.
30th.
I got it at
This
8:21 this
morning.
morning.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, trends
Yeah,
is,
that's the old email. There's a
October
new-
30th.
Yeah, this is the one you
Tom,
sent this
Anthony,
morning.
Brian,
oh, this one
Dave,
here, this one
Matt,
here.
Raul,
Yeah.
Tom, Kelly,
Yeah.
yes.
That's the one you sent this
And then
morning.
there's the-
which is-
Yes.
Okay, I
Guidance
see. Was it
calculator.
just in the later
No,
one,
wait.
yeah. Sorry.
Give me a minute.
Yeah, this is.
No, yes,
I
yes,
just
yes.
put the colors there,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why,
yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you mind just going through again how the salary percentage of adjusted base
Yep.
is used to go from the 2.6 to the 1.34?
Sure. So,
Or not just how, but how and why?
why? So one of the conversations that, the way this started was that we would have a kind of debates about, or discussions about applying a multiplier or, inflationary adjustment to elements of the budget that were going to be directly affected by collective bargaining agreements that are determined already, like we know what the increases are going to be, or to be determined. So the thought was, what we would do would take those costs related to the CBAs out of the base. So, in this case, $8.4 million worth of salary items would be taken out of the base, and that represents 48.4% of the base. So about half.
Does that, I understand it for contracts that are continuing, but in the case of the contracts that are not continuing, that have to be renegotiated, is it still taken out because you figure it's all gonna get caught in the warrant articles?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's really gonna come back in with the adjusted
No,
increase.
I
Right.
understand, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just absorbing.
Yeah.
I know as I was getting out of the car, I was like, oh, I probably should have had a conversation with Tom Solon before we came here, just to kind of run him through this.
No, but I think the public is seeing us, and our minute taking is taking all these notes. So we're gonna revisit this again. So having this discussion
And
here
it
is
does
helpful.
remind everybody,
It's helpful.
you know, how it's done. So, so that, in the, you know, just under 50% is then applied against,
So
The
then
mo-
you take the base, and then now you increase the base by this adjustment, or do you put all the stuff back in and then apply the adjustment?
so we take the multiplier, the adjustment, and apply it to the bigger base.
The big
The
base.
bigger base. We're
Okay.
going to take a smaller percent, so you could take a,
But it's still only.
you could take a
this-
larger percentage against a smaller base or a smaller percentage against the larger base. It's going to get you to the same.
But it still has not yet added back in the things that were initially extracted.
Correct. So then we add those things in. The reason why those things are extracted is because those are items that move independent of inflation. So for, like,
No,
for
I
debt.
understand,
Okay.
I'm
Yep.
just trying to figure out, without seeing the whole equation, I was trying to figure out where the parentheses go,
Yeah.
basically.
So those things get added back. I mean, sometimes the NHRS became an item because every 2 years the rates change. Special education is an item that gets a little bit, you know, different attention and discussion because it really does not move with inflation. It really is so dependent on, you know, how the population of students changes and things like that. And then there are times, and Kelly, we didn't talk about benefits and the changes to GMR. We can talk about the facilities with the piping or whatever that plan is going to be. If those things are kind of the outside of guidance items, things from an administration perspective, they say, we've worked through those items by saying, we appreciate the calculation so far, but in these specific cases, due to higher increases and things like that, you know, it's a discussion of should they be considered for kind of relief and just added back in full.
And is that how you address things that are new items for the upcoming budget?
No, not necessarily. So I would say, I wrote piping repairs, because I'm not sure if that specific project would be so large to, you know, to really significantly affect an increase to the budget that's going to be, you know, greater than like a 1% shift in our like capital expense items. I expect there's probably going to be a discussion about the GMR, because the GMR increases statewide are anticipated to be extremely significant moving into the upcoming year, like more than, double digit as opposed to, the 4 to 8
It's
to under
18%.
10%. So what?
It's 18%.
It is 18%.
For us,
So, whether that's a consideration of, in full, in part, things like that. But it's not typically a discussion we have at the preliminary guidance time, but those are things we're just kind of aware of as we go through this process. So, I'd love to hear everybody's input on whether, I think, I believe we did keep, we did adjust last year's budget during this guidance discussion.
Right, correct.
We can certainly opt not to. That would make I would take out another $233,000. So I'd be just happy to have input from anyone on whether you think even starting with a guidance multiplier of 2.6%, which was based on the September 23 view, if people think that's realistic to consider for next year, or just kind of have a discussion about how to proceed from here.
Do you have any historical performance data of how well we have followed CPI as far as our expenses, our costs?
I would say the last 2 years have probably been,
And I'm not saying the budget part of it, I'm talking
No,
about the actual cost, because a lot of things were covered by external funding, but the price that we pay for things that are budgeted, does CPI apply to our school
Well, what I
district?
could do, let me, hold
But what
on.
are the major categories of expenditure? We have salary, which is, how much is that, half?
Of the total budget?
Of the, well, it's.
Salary and benefits is, I think, like 60%?
It's probably
You got-
definitely more than
You got
50.
49% here, but that may not include everything. It doesn't include benefits, I don't think.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But CPI is, CPI is heavily weighted for things like energy costs, I think. That's a big part, but I think, does CPI also include rent, housing expenses?
I think, because we use
The
CPIU, I think, so I'm not sure it does.
The one that I included was in all items.
Yeah,
The
it's in
2.6% was on all items.
CPIU is all items.
What would be the amount if that was 0%? But left everything else the same?
Mm-hmm.
If what was 0%?
The bottom guidance
multiplier.
multiplier.
It would be a difference of 1.4 million we would be down to 27.2 versus the request of 28.7.
And right now, the suggested guidance is 27,475, right?
That was the view, just using, current CPI and,
Right.
kind of just going through our regular.
I mean, my strategy, if I was playing chess here, okay, I would basically go with the 0%, but be flexible at the back end after the school has gone through the process, or maybe 2 or 3 rounds, and do it a more detailed analysis and helping justify what they need. In other words,
So you're saying keep a flat budget until someone proves it's not going to work?
correct. And I'm ready to accept logical explanations for all the numbers.
So,
Essentially, don't use a multiplier.
right.
Right.
So not using a multiplier still results in a budget that's $684,000 greater than the budget that we're currently in, because of those changes in things like special education, those services went up, but debt service might have gone down a little bit, things like
Yeah, but
that.
those are reasonable.
Yeah, yeah. But that's the intention by, taking out and adding back in. So
Right.
even with 0, the budget does go up by about $684,000.
And the difference between that and what is requested. So it's up 600, but we still off by 800, or
We're off by 1.4 million.
from above the 6?
No.
Yeah.
No.
An additional 8. 6 and then an additional 8
Okay.
to get to the 1.4.
Right, okay.
So that's kind of my suggestion on the table.
I think it's a good suggestion because I think it makes it cleaner, a cleaner look.
Right.
It sounds like what you're effectively saying is you don't want to give guidance right now. Because what you're saying is you come and tell us what you think you need and justify it, and we will either agree or disagree once you've made your explanation. So for now, we don't want to give you guidance that would lead you to believe we support an increase.
No, but we're giving guidance because there's a number associated with it.
But if you really believe that there should be no increase, then that would be guidance. But what you're saying is, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, I don't know what the right number is. I want to understand what you think the right number is.
Yeah, I have to agree with Tom for once. It doesn't happen very often, but yeah, it does feel like it does. Yes, you want to get this recorded, I agree. it does feel like we're essentially not giving any guidance. What we've done in the past is we've given them, we've come up with a percentage increase that we felt was reasonable with, all other things trimmed out of it and such. And the schools have been pretty good about meeting that, or if they feel really strongly about something, they provide justifications for things that would over it, and then we make a decision based on that. I feel like that process works, but it does feel like if we just say flat, unless we really mean it, if we really mean we want, to keep the controllable things flat, that is guidance. But if we don't really mean that, then we're essentially just not providing guidance, and I think that makes the conversation, it makes the job of the superintendent more difficult to try to divine what it is that we're really thinking if we don't tell them.
Because every year it goes back and forth. We give guidance, they have their number, and 99% of the time, it gets met. He finds areas to cut and.
And I would say for the last 2 or 3 years, the administration has come back and exceeded the guidance, the expectation.
When you say exceed,
The other
I-
way.
Lower than.
By coming in lower
Okay.
than what
Yep.
the guidance that we put
that's what I
forward.
thought, but I just
Yep.
wasn't.
I know it's like an odd kind
It's
of,
a-
yeah.
So they're doing such a good job at coming lower that I want to keep going lower as well.
Just about to throw something at you, Ralph.
I mean, I know right now, that, so Kelly, what you have in the view you've shared includes like the 18% increase in GMR,
It does,
correct?
yeah. I think that was like a $450,000 increase.
And so that increase alone, in health and dental is, over $500,000.
Yep.
Because it's not only the percentage increase, it's because there have been plan changes across the community that aren't covered by the budget itself, but going forward.
Yes,
If you're on a family now, this year, you're probably more than
you're likely.
So
yes.
what you're suggesting, or at least I'm interpreting, is assuming we start out with this 0 multiplier, we can add things that we know, right, are going to be added. And so that in itself is creating a percentage greater than 0 increase, right?
Mhm.
And maybe we can go with something like that.
Well, yeah, likely, as Darlene suggested before, we will likely come to you with the what do we call them, relief items, and that would definitely be one of them, and the piping as well might be another one, because that's not
So maybe what
something-
we can do is, again, go back, eliminate the multiplier and replace it with things that we know for sure need to be done.
I think it boils down to if we really do believe that prices for things will be flat, and do we really believe that's what's intended for the future, what's going to happen in FY 20, the school year 24 to 25.
So, I made this argument last time we did this, and I think it might still be relevant, but if we use the CPI as our guidance for an increase in the school budget this year, for the coming year, it's a flat recommendation. That CPI is an increase we've already experienced in the economy. So we budgeted last year for a number that was 2.3% less than what it costs today. So a CPI increase is essentially a 0 budget increase recommendation if we're to maintain the same level of services and products that we buy. So taking away the CPI recommendation is a negative impact on our ability to provide services to our school district.
It's a cut,
It's a pay cut. Exactly.
because CPI is not a forecast, it is a historical
We're looking
event.
backwards, right?
So, what it's saying is, the prices that we've been paying this year have been increasing such that at the conclusion of the period in advance, it has gone up that amount. So that is, as Tom was saying, that's where we are now. By using it for guidance, you're sort of assuming that it will be the inflation rate going forward as well.
I don't think that's exactly, let me look at it a little differently, okay? Social Security basically told me that for next year, they're going to increase my Social Security amount by 3.2%. And what I'm collecting now was based on last year's projection. So assuming his calculation, I will say that the multiplier that Darlene created, plus the 1.34% from 1.34, that adds up to basically 3.94%. And if you want to keep it simple without going into all the details, I could say, let's replace the 2.6 and the 1.34 with a 3.2, period, for the total amount.
What's the 1.34?
The 1.34 is the basically adjusted CPI, but they're not additive. Like, I'm not applying both.
Right, I'm trying
Yeah.
to compare a very simplistic approach without getting into all the details versus the detailed approach that Darlene has presented us with here. And the numbers are roughly, I don't know, within 1%, right? But 1% of $30 million is $300,000, right?
What, I'm not following where you're getting the 2.6 plus the 1.34.
And
But 1.34 is the result of applying 2.6 to a smaller number.
So
Portion.
your
And-
so then your recommendation.
48% of 2.6.
Right.
Right. So then what you're, I think what you're saying is to increase the starting point.
yes,
Which is kind of what I think I'm saying, is. if
Yeah, I
we're
don't
gonna-
think it's different from what
If
Tom
we're going to
said.
recommend.
so
it-
what number are you using for the increase?
We haven't discussed that yet.
Oh, okay, all right.
All that, and I'm not trying to, I'm trying to understand more than influence. I've heard two potential processes described. One is to look at it in the aggregate. The equivalent of a bottom line budget comes with a single unit multiplier. The other is to do a line by line, not 100% line by line, but a category by category evaluation of these things we know are going to be exceptions to a formulaic approach. Let's factor those in, let's account for them, and the rest, let's assume that we can continue the course as is. Whether you apply a multiplier to it or not, that's a strategic decision. But either way, I think the only difference will be how Kelly and Andy approach the idea as to, do they have a target which is based on a budget committee input, or do they have a target based strictly on administrative preferences?
So,
Just briefly, kind of summarizing our process and our thought and how this has kind of worked in the past, is we've provided some sort of budget guidance for it, which ends up calculating a number for it. The administration looks at all of their all the things they would like to be able to do, and they prioritize them and remove the lower priority, costlier things until they get down to that number. And they'll present that to us as saying, okay, for that number, these are the things that we feel are the highest priority that we could do with that budget. And if they agree with that's a reasonable approach, then we're kind of done at that point. But if they also come back, but they could also come back and say, all right, but in order to get to this number, we had to cut out these other things that are really important, and we would like for you to consider that. So then the budget committee then can come back and say, okay, we're either going to stick with where we are, or we're going to increase, increase it, allow some of those higher priority things to come in, or we could even say reduce it even further and remove some other things. But basically this is a mechanism that allows the schools to prioritize their things. And when we take a line in this, we give them a line to meet, and then they can show us what that looks like and make the argument for if they feel that's unreasonable, and we can adjust from there. I feel that's a process that's worked pretty well for several years.
And from my point of view, I agree that we should, if we follow this process successfully for a number of years, we should continue to do it.
Yep.
Rather than totally changing the approach. So that's that. Again, if I'm playing chess, I want to see what the other side's move is. I want to start out with a move. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's no guidance or guidance. It is a move that's reasonable. And so the question then becomes, how likely is it that when they come back through all their detailed reviews, that will be very close, equal to, or how far apart will be? And then we'll make adjustments at that point. But I'd like to at least get the process started with a challenge to the superintendent and his staff. Okay?
That to me is a fundamental flaw in an approach, in that chess is an adversarial activity with a single winner.
This is not an adversarial activity.
Right, this should be a collaborative.
It is.
One where you tell me what you're thinking and I tell you what I'm thinking, and let's see if we can meld our thoughts. For you to say, I'm not going to make the first move.
I didn't say that at all. I
No,
mean,
that-
we're discussing here what the first move is, and we collectively are going to vote on it. Okay?
Saying zero.
I think
is
another way of looking at this is by providing guidance, we're really telling the administration what we would be comfortable with. We're comfortable with an increase at this particular level. They'll try to meet that, and then we go from there. And then we push into levels of discomfort if we need to go higher.
What are you willing
It
to
is,
support?
but
at this
it
point in
is
time?
guidance to them. So that's,
I'd almost like to reframe that a little bit. We're all elected to these positions because we're entrusted with the community's best interest. The people who elect us voted for us for that reason. And to Tom's point, an adversarial position with our administrators and our school boards is probably less productive than a collaborative effort where, as elected officials, we're hired because of our expertise, per se. And our expertise should be in being able to recommend a budget based on what we know about the economy moving forward, and what we think that the community should be able to justify in their minds based on solid input, good information, the best information we can get on a regular basis. So our recommendation to the school board and to the administration for a budget, it should show some sort of awareness of what's going on in the economy and in the world in general, and what the potential changes in the economy are going to be in the coming year.
I agree, but we also need to look at the details, and I take exception for both of you to be using the word adversarial. I am not trying to be adversarial or suggesting that. I think that's a word you've used that you should take back. This is a process that we have used before, and I would like to get it started, and I feel, using his word, I'm comfortable with making suggestions. I took the first step in making a suggestion. I haven't heard your suggestions. I've heard them, but we haven't really discussed them in detail. And I think this is not necessarily going in the right direction. So I suggest you take the word adversarial back, because that's not what was meant.
I think that was Tom's
Okay.
point.
Well,
And just looking at the economy and the projections and coming up with a rough number is too superficial, it's not detailed enough. I was just focusing my numbers based on the guidance and some suggestions for adjusting the numbers back and forth. I didn't say to increase the deficit or the delta. I was just suggesting how can we recalculate the numbers to be something reasonable. For example, starting out with a baseline, whatever that is that we can all agree to, and then we can add some factors that we already know what they're going to be. I'm just suggesting that, okay? No need to use the word adversarial, because we're not being adversarial.
well, let me at
Okay.
least clarify. I'm not saying that you're adversarial, Raul.
Well,
My
no, that's a
comment-
suggestion.
My comment is that that position your comment puts the Budget Committee at odds with the school board and the administration in how we negotiate this. When we say we're going to give you a zero, an unreasonable, an illogical number of zero,
I didn't say a zero.
Yes, you
I
did.
just basically said
You said
2.6%.
Okay,
okay, I mean, if that's not what you meant, that's fine.
That's
That's fine.
okay. I was looking at the numbers. Were you looking at the numbers too?
I was listening to you saying, why
Okay.
don't we say 0%?
My position is stated. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I just want to remind that from the board's point of view, this committee owns the budget. It's the budget committee's budget. The budget committee will present it, and the budget committee will determine what the voters vote on. And the school board and the administration view that as, this is what we have to work from, and what they come back with and say, if this is the money that you give us, this is what we think we will buy with that money.
We're not disagreeing.
Yeah. So it's this group is ultimately going to decide what it is. The information, the better the information you give to the administration about what they have to spend, the more likely you are to get accurate feedback of how it will be spent.
Tom Whalen, do you have a recommendation based on the position you provided earlier?
I'll have to think about it to give you a good number. I want to research it, but it's certainly greater than CPI.
And past
I
CPI.
don't think that the CPI is going down next year, in other words. I don't think that's a reasonable position.
Are there any other recommendations to, so the point of doing this now, at this time of year, is because we don't have that many meetings to review and assess information, and we do like to provide direction to the administration. So our next meeting is November 30th, and that's when we kind of, look at, it would be around 3 of the budget. We've got some, refinement to, some of the calculations and things like that that are driving the budget, and perhaps some other decisions that get made, or, more clarification on upcoming projects like the piping repairs and, facilities items and things like that. So I very much view the process as finding, looking at the information that we have and finding the budget that's the right budget for the district. But there are factors that affect our community as well. So we don't have tax rates yet. We'll know those by the 30th, and our next meeting. We'll know the impacts of what those the current budget that we're in and what those impacts are to the community. But I don't disagree with, certain aspects of a lot of the things that I've heard this evening, but I would, if you want to take a motion on whether to support Raoul's 0%, we can do that. If you want to have a continued discussion on an estimate to a change to the multiplier, that's fine too. It does provide some direction. The worst case scenario from my perspective is I would look at the preliminary guidance view as really our lowest view, because what I would hate to happen, I think we've been presented with a lot of very good, solid information, and I would not want to put forward a preliminary guidance view and then come back a month from now after there's an additional work done and cut the budget below that. So I very much view this preliminary guidance as like the kind of most conservative view that we're going to put forward. Because I think we can all agree that everything we heard tonight in the overview of round 2 has justification, has merit. There are things that are needed. There are certain aspects, like I think, Raoul, you asked about, safety concerns. Is that really something you want to move out of the budget? Is it something you want to, put back in? Things like that. So I don't want this to continue to be a process where we just cut and cut and cut with every view. I want this view to be the most conservative. It puts, and by most conservative, I don't necessarily mean 0. I mean consideration for the other positions that we've heard, but I think we just need to be really sure of the direction that we are given, because the administration will make decisions based on what we put forward. And like I said, and they're difficult decisions, throughout the process. So I would just love some more feedback on how you would want to proceed.
Before we finalize this discussion, I would like to summarize these numbers, if I believe those are the bottom line numbers on the FY25 guidance.
Yeah, okay. So,
Can I just ask a question?
Mhm.
Does this group like the process of flowing the maintenance money through the trust and the warrant article, even when it's a high priority current expense?
I think it's something in general we've supported for quite a period of time, so I would say we support it.
There's a lot of pros and cons to both ways of doing it. The pros here are that, it keeps having some of the items being in a separate trust fund keeps the budget a little bit more stable, a little less fluctuatingly, as we have, big maintenance items that come in occasionally. It also gives the voters an opportunity, if they're feeling a little bit tight with the wallet, to be able to say, yeah, we're not doing that, but we're not going to, vote down the entire budget. It gives them a little bit something. It's also helpful in that because we present it separately, it's a separate warrant article, we're talking about these various things to the voters that we're doing, the big infrastructure things, whereas in the operating budget, it would really just get lost, I think.
And it does serve a part of the purpose that you were bringing up earlier, in that we are saving for the high school elevator with the view that's presented here.
Yeah, no, I was specifically asking about the things that.
Yeah, the other
The full amount
elements.
that
Yep.
it's in, and
And goes out.
And it also shows that we're taking it right out.
Mhm.
So,
But we
no,
have
I-
built the base of, it's around
I'm
160,000
not here,
at this point.
it wasn't a trick question, I really, the reason I was asking is that the comment that Kelly made, which is very valid, is that it's sort of a chicken and egg, guidance drives where they put it. So if you don't want them to put it there, the way to change that is to include it in the guidance number. And I just wanted to ask if it's, which is the tail and which is
So
the
that's
dog?
almost like, that's almost another, relief of, it becomes a relief of guidance. Add $300,000 from, capital maintenance items. which actually includes part of the pipe. Well, no, the capital maintenance items did not include the piping repairs?
No.
No.
Did not.
There's
You know.
there's 350 in the proposed budget, which is the absolute minimum cost that we may have to spend, depending on what we find out this month. Raul and I are waiting for that very anxiously.
Did they do the test yet?
No, that's what we're waiting for, is the test, to see how the tests go.
So the default guidance is what percentage?
The
2.6?
one that just kind of is based off of CPI results in 1.34%.
1.34.
Yep, which is $233,000
Yep. And
across
remind me in the
17 million.
Remind me, even though I've been here for a few years,
Mm-hmm.
I'm on so many committees, it's hard to keep all this straight. Have we generally followed CPI fairly closely, or have we just kind of adjusted it a bit
I don't
from
think,
year to year?
you
I don't recall.
you mean as we've done this process?
Yes, as we've provided guidance.
We've generally followed this process.
And it's worked.
Mhm.
Everybody
I
comes
think-
together and adjusts and does what
I mean, I
priorities
can-
and-
I think if I go back 2 years,
I didn't mean to
I was
create
going to say,
work for you.
I'm trying to think of a year where there was, we've had relatively low inflation. I think last year it was higher inflation and, let's see if I can find it. I don't know if I have it. Okay, I do. No, I don't. Good golly. I might. Oh, here we go. Last year's multiplier was 3.1%. Because B13, yep. We were looking at inflation at this time last year of 6%. So again, salaries ended up around 50%, and we ended up with a multiplier of 3.1%. So so that was in a year where there was just traditionally higher inflation.
Were you at 2.6?
I'm sorry?
You at 2.6?
We're at 2.6 now, yes.
And that leaves us how far apart from 1.2? Is that?
From the 2.6 drops to 1.34, and it makes us $1.2 million below the requested budget.
The requested budget is 7.1% higher than last year. What the current recommendation is 2.6 higher than last year.
It was 7.5%.
So there's a
higher.
difference between 2.6 and 7.1, which is 4.5%. So the second round view is off from the guidance, suggested guidance based on the calculations by 4.5%.
So we're about $1.4 million.
$1.2 million off.
$1.2 million difference between us right now.
Right.
Assuming
Assuming
the
that
2.1,
everything is, yeah.
Guidance.
And I was just going to say that ultimately, we're all voted in by the taxpayers, so we need to think about them as well. And not everybody is well off. So this is we got to find the right balance.
We also need to keep in mind that this is just guidance. In the end, we end up deciding what the budget's gonna be.
And that's
in the end.
what, and that's what I said earlier, you know?
Mhm. But nobody wants to jump in and throw something in.
So so if I were to then,
Speak up.
well, just to give you a perspective,
Yes.
if we were to take the 1.3, if you overlay 430,000 from the new item spreadsheet for $175,000 for each school, and then another $80,000 on an underground oil tank, or I would assume that would shift to propane if we, like,
That's for the removal of the tank.
that's the
a
removal
place-
of the
that's-
tank.
Yeah, I would use the
That's a-
350
Is
number, right?
$80,000 to
Well,
take the
it's-
tank out.
Now we have a better number. It's,
Holy
for
cow.
one school, it's about $50,000.
Okay, well, even so, that's a lot of money to just take out a
I can
tank.
get it back, though. Pull it out.
So-
Brian, what are you doing with that?
Little time, but,
Wow, gosh.
We'll
We're in the
use
wrong
you to remove the
business.
tank, right?
That kind of money, I'll do
Yeah.
it twice.
Yeah, really.
Wow.
So question.
So if we just take the piping repair piece
Mhm.
and call it 350,000, because I think that would be the minimum that project would cost, not knowing anything about the plan other than,
I think the
Yes.
number we discussed yesterday was anywhere between 300,000 and 400,000, right?
all right, so
Okay,
350.
good.
So, you know, I perceive that as a relief of guidance item. It was something that, you know, we put forward on a warrant article last year. It didn't pass. It's something that needs to be done. And we, you know, we received permission to be able to wait and do it again. We're doing it.
It's an essential.
It's an essential, so that's
Yes.
going. And we are actively going to realize an increase in GMR. Now, ultimately, that final rate is determined after we vote in March. It's the same kind of cycle every year. So, I mean, even if I were to take half of the increase and just say, okay, you know, we'll give relief on half of that increase. That adds another almost 250,000. So with a 1.34%, consideration of two items outside of the guidance, which are the piping repairs and some adjustment for a much higher than anticipated GMR, that then puts us at $618,000 below the district's
What-
view.
There are a couple of questions. One,
Yep.
what's the 1.34 again? What was that?
The 1.34 is the adjustment to CPI. So it takes the 2.6 and makes it an adjustment to 1.34%.
You take
What?
out the salaries and stuff.
Takes the labor out.
Right, the
you're
the multiplier
saying-
factor. I'm saying
That's so confusing.
keep the 1.34%,
Yep.
just driven off of CPI. That adds 233,000. So on the base of seven, you know, the base of, remember, we started at 28.3, we reduced the budget to 17.4, we apply a factor, add back items. So on the 17.4,
Yep.
we're applying a 1% adjustment, a 1.34% adjustment. Did I say that right? Yes. So that's 233,000.
Why the 1.34 adjustment if the CPI is like 2.1?
Because we
taking
don't
48%.
apply it, we're saying
the
we make an
labor.
adjustment to the
Yep.
CPI because we're not going to apply it to salaries, which
Okay, so-
CBA-driven salaries,
So we
which
don't take the
comprise,
salaries out?
it gets applied.
That's all,
Good
that's
call.
all contractual.
The
Yeah,
increase in
it-
the salaries is out because it will be captured in separate warrant articles
Yep.
for both contracts.
Right.
Yes.
So those
Yes.
don't have to get
Yep.
escalated by guidance.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Alright,
what's
so
left
shouldn't
is-
they be removed and guidance just applied to the rest?
Well,
it's kind of-
It's like
Okay.
applying, you can apply a higher percent to a lower number or the lower percent to a higher number.
Multiplication is
Okay.
The net,
commutative.
it's kind of the same thing.
Okay. Okay, all right, I will trust you. My brain's a little bit,
It's late, I know,
foggy
I know.
this late at night.
So that,
multiple nights in a row.
you know, so that,
So my question is, if we do that, what is what would be the total budget percentage increase year to year, everything included?
everything included,
That's the 7.
but it excludes, we don't even have a placeholder in for the HEA contract.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
so that's
yep, we
out
do
of
have that.
both.
Yep.
So it's the same base, it's out of both.
Mhm.
Including that percentage, including 2 adjustments for the piping repairs and some adjustment for GMR, would bring us about a little over $600,000 apart. And the budget committee view would be 5.4% higher than last year, total budget. And the district's view is 7.5% greater.
So we're talking about at least a 5% increase in the budget
In 1 year.
in 1 year. That's significant.
I just want to
like
see,
7.5.
I haven't.
7.5 is what they're asking for.
Right.
5 is our guidance,
Yeah.
if we went with the CPI.
The end result is that
Hold on a
when
minute.
the warrant articles come out, people will just pick big numbers and
Oh, I can't use
lop them
that.
off, hold them out, like they did last year with the $350,000 repair for the pipes in the oil tank. So,
But it is what, some of that, it just is what it is. The tanks, it's got to be dealt with, you
well,
know, but,
we
but other
haven't heard
things, you know.
anything about that, because can that project, the biggest project that I think I understand was the pipes that have a problem. The tank has to be taken out or something done with the tanks. Can that be split off into 2 years?
So we're going to have a facilities discussion at some point. I'm putting this forward as a proposal because we know the repairs have to be made to the pipes. That's,
Well, I
We
mean,
don't know.
We don't know that. We'll find
Lordy
out when
people.
the test come
when does that happen?
this month.
this month, I don't know when, though.
Next week?
All right.
No, I wish,
but
but
if it doesn't have to be done right now, it's going to have to be done
It's,
really
if
soon.
we're, remember, we're putting it off
So-
until July,
Yeah,
right?
he-
That's what you're doing anyway.
Oh, well,
Ro,
yeah.
jump in if you think I'm misstating it, but it is likely, highly likely, that money will be well spent on our energy system in the next school year. The committee seems to support having at least that amount in the budget. It's just not explicitly known
Okay.
where it's going.
Okay, okay, that's, for this process, at
When I
this
say it's
point,
not, we have
Yeah, this is a separate
we have a
thing. It
whole
is.
bunch of things.
these
that
are a lot of
and
things that have to still be
there are
talked about,
a
and this is
lot
what
more
happens
money
at
than
this
that.
time of year, but,
Depending on
and
the
it's, again,
results.
it's everyone's comfort level at this point, with, you know, a set of assumptions
Yeah.
that gets refined.
We'll know next month.
Darlene, what's the average increase every year in budget? 2%, 2.25%? This seems that, I mean, going, like Raul was saying, going to the taxpayer saying, hey, this year's gonna be 6-7% because of necessities, and I
Are
understand.
you talking exclusive of warrant articles?
No, I,
No,
Overall.
Dave.
You talk, you know, remember we had
Just give me a minute.
decrease of 5% during COVID. We had an increase of 5% before that, you know, an increase of 5% after that, and then now we're looking at, you know, it was down 7% in 20.
so I can give you a rundown of budgets, okay?
And actuals, right?
Well, no,
Budgets,
for,
no,
let me
not-
do just budgets
Just
first. It's
budgets.
going to be too many percentages. FY '19 was 2.3% greater than FY '18. FY '20 was 7.3% greater than FY '19. FY '21 was 1.86% greater than FY '20. '22 was 3.16% greater.
These are-
23
these are the
was
budget warrant articles, right?
Budget, full total budget. At the end of the
That's
day,
all I want, yeah,
But
that's-
is that what's on the warrant article? Or is that also including
It's what passed
All the
budget.
warrant.
district meeting,
With all the
All
warrant.
with all the warrant
Okay.
articles, whatever
And
passed.
that's what we're gonna be looking at. So every year it's gone up, some 5%,
Yeah,
some
so
7%, some 1.3.
23 was 4.8%,
Even with
24
COVID.
was 5%. A little over 5.
Okay, so 5% is not abnormal.
4 to 5% seems to be normal here.
Right,
Well,
okay.
and it's highly variable, but.
But remember.
And there are
these are
different
all the
things,
increases.
and there are
We
different,
defer-
so, and remember, there are different things that
It's not a-
affected each of those scenarios, right? So we're not talking about is, you know, what year had an agreement, a contract, what, if it was Sanbornized, you know, we know that last year we went back and, you know, opened up the HESA agreement and made some adjustments and things like that. So there are all different things. There were
Right, every-
bonds, there
well,
were
puts and takes.
leases, there were all different things that affected
Multiple factors every year. I get
every
that.
year.
But I
Mhm.
like
Always
with a
be the
simple
case.
overall budget, because I'm wondering if it's been 2%, now we're gonna say, okay, 5%, it's gonna seem extreme to the taxpayer.
Well,
And
So
then when
so
you,
it was
when-
5%, the one that just passed was 5%.
Right.
Do you have any guess
the-
what the percentage, not, I know you don't know HEA, but warrant articles, things that have to be on a warrant article, do you know what additional percentage that is already? Because we know we've got the HESA warrant article.
Yep, we know we have HESA. That's in at 82,473.
Yeah.
So we have that calculated. We have the maintenance trust at 300. We have the contingency at 125. And the SAU budget assessment,
Which is an estimate.
which is what?
An estimate.
Yeah,
is-
which is an
right.
estimate, yes.
How much does it?
We didn't even talk about that yet.
No, my point is that's not in the 5 yet, the 5%, is it?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Oh, the 5 is including the warrant articles?
All
Yes,
the
all of
warrant
it.
Okay.
Excluding the HEA
Okay,
agreement.
no, I thought it was the 5 before the warrant articles.
No,
Not
No.
including,
is it fair to say that if we would then were to overlay the money that was given back to the district afterwards, that those
Multiple factors, but,
net,
you know,
even though we don't want to call them budgets, but my point here is that the actual cost of the district was reduced as a result of giving some of that money back.
What is, what,
So the net
yes,
result,
so there are, okay,
Right.
there are many things
Right.
that affect the, you know, the amount that gets appropriated at a meeting and then the tax effort that ends up being charged to taxpayers. So as Kelly shared, we had an additional $200,000 just that was budget related. Then there were some changes to the adequacy calculation that took place with the legislation. You didn't have that in there too, did you? No, because that affects this year.
Yeah, this-
So there are changes to adequacy. There are changes to our ADM. There are changes to the tax base. All of those things, and the net effect to taxpayers had all of the, so for all of those things that happened here for the co-op, it happened in the Brookline School District, it happened in the Hollis School District, and there are things that happened at each town level as well.
but what I'm getting at is,
Yes,
historically,
yep,
if I was telling this story,
yes,
even though those budgets seem high
yep.
year after year, you were also giving money, a lot of money back to the district.
And the view
And
we,
somehow we need to capture the net result of that.
and the view we provide at every annual meeting is really what I consider the most conservative view. It is not making an assumption that 200, we've had that 2 to 250 as a, return to taxpayers as a very conservative estimate. So in the years where it was higher than that, and we reaped the benefit of that as a taxpayer, because maybe we returned $1 million during COVID, or we didn't, fund positions, or, we had unfilled positions and things like that, there's a direct result that feels really good to your pocketbook at that time, but when we return back to the spending level, it makes the increase look even more significant. So that's a whole tax conversation we can have once all the taxes are
I'd like to
finalized.
suggest that we just stick with the CPI for guidance.
Okay, so the,
talking
the-
the 1.34,
the 2.6 with the
modified to
1.34 adjustment.
Yes.
69-4 IPI squared, yeah. I lost you, hello.
Yes, yes, to answer two questions, yes.
Okay. I'm just putting in some time.
Without necessarily adding some of the other items that we discussed.
With the understanding of the two items that Darlene had suggested were taken out of consideration. Some
For
money
now,
for
yeah.
tank repair.
Oh, yeah.
Less comfortable with just vague.
So that, and that's a conversation we can have in
But
November,
we
and that's
will
how
have
we,
that
and that's,
conversation
and that,
in the end.
but it
We will have
does,
that conversation in time.
again, it
But
was
for
there
planning
for
not
a
a vague
perspective.
Right
number.
now,
It's-
take 350,000 out for that.
That's an
and some
explicit
money
number,
for-
Brian.
I'm
It's
sorry.
That's a known number for a known expense.
This number is here.
What we don't know, what we haven't had is confirmation that we have to pay that. We've been told by the
Yeah.
consultant.
So for now, for budgeting purposes, we'll take out that, and we'll take out some money for GMR outside of the guidance.
So you do want those added in? Okay, taking out means adding them in?
I mean, not subject to the guidance.
Okay.
It's like, we've got some money set aside for them.
So we're saying we're gonna put that back in. We're gonna say, we're gonna take our view that gets calculated with the adjustment, and we're gonna say, we are gonna make another adjustment. We're gonna give you another 350.
Yep.
And we're gonna give you another 245,802.
So that number will be about 28,000 instead of
It'll
27?
be it'll be just under 28.1 million, $28,071,084.
Which is a total percentage
Which
increase?
is a, hold on, that's a different spreadsheet, hold on.
What was the second item? The first item was the,
GMR.
oh,
Okay, that is a prior year, okay, I need to.
Kelly, I have to assume too, you guys are getting multiple quotes on everything, oil tank removal and stuff like that. right?
Oh,
There.
yes.
Except, yeah, because right now it was just.
Well, I mean, the quotes will really come when we do get closer to the project as opposed to now, because they're going to be vastly different between now and then. But we are, that number is as close as we can get as an estimate prior to actually doing it.
this is the,
So, after consideration of the other estimates that we have in for articles, that would get the total budget to $29,765,012, which is a 5.4% increase, excluding the HEA contract, which doesn't have a
Yep.
placeholder.
Okay, but including the other potential warrant articles that
Oh,
we've
yeah,
discussed.
the HESA
Okay.
contract.
That's what was it again?
5.4%.
5.4%. That is a pretty healthy increase. But let's use that as guidance.
Can we talk about the salary impacts, though? We're playing catch-up, I assume, with our contracts. We didn't increase our salaries during COVID when everyone else was going up 20% in their salaries, or 15% in their salaries.
There were contracts in place
Mm-hmm.
that
Because-
addressed table changes and step changes.
And some increases were realized, and that's
Yeah.
reflected in the numbers.
Yeah,
But we didn't renegotiate a contract based on that.
no.
So-
I think there was,
for the HESA, not for the.
for the HESA, there were.
HEA.
those-
HESA reopened the
yeah.
contract, right?
But I think, was the last teacher contract, it was a 3-year,
So
right?
we're negotiating a teacher contract right now, is my point.
24,
Yes.
23,
That's the first
22.
warrant article.
Well, I'm sorry, say that one more
But
time.
we're
John.
talking about
That's the first
all
year of
warrants
COVID.
included in the budget,
It's all
right?
done
We're talking about
remotely.
increases year.
Yeah, but that item hasn't
Okay.
been added.
So
It
so
hasn't
the
yet.
It has not been added.
But
Okay.
The guidance is only for a portion of the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other warrant
Yeah, we're
articles
not
get
making
added on to
any
it later.
assumptions. I mean, I can tell you the amount of the last year of the last contract was like 330,000.
Yeah. I feel like we're missing something in what's coming down the pike on the contract, because we're talking about, we talked earlier about the total number, all warrants included.
Except for that one.
Except for that one, which means
We
it's
are
gonna be
missing, yeah,
higher.
we are missing a big one.
But
We are missing.
historically,
It's a very
we've
big
included that.
Because
salaries.
we've
known
known,
it.
But you knew what it was, right?
right,
You knew what it
in
was.
the, from an HEA perspective, it was
Two out of
San
every 3 years, you know it.
So I guess what I'm saying
I
is,
mean,
that if we're comparing apples to apples eventually,
So if I
Our
just-
number's gonna go up by more than we're saying.
If I put in
Go up by
350,000 as a
Okay.
placeholder for the HA contract, that has nothing to do with negotiations, it has nothing to do with inputs.
Yeah.
It's looking at a tiny bit higher than the last year that was calculated on the last contract. That's the only assumption
But Darlene said.
for that article. Has no basis in what's actually happening.
And all
Higher
I'm
or
saying is we
lower?
think- We
Okay.
think
It
about
would
that, we have to
be,
put a number on it.
just to be clear, I'm
Yep.
throwing a placeholder of 350,000.
Yeah.
I'm even gonna put it in yellow so that, well, maybe I should put it in red because it's,
What is the basis for that? No, I missed what you, I misunderstood.
Hey, Tom,
the last year, a very small amount higher than the last year of the contract, which was 330,000. So I just made 350. I just pulled 350 out of the air.
Plug the number in, just a space holder.
Just as a placeholder, just to give
Yeah.
everyone, like, it's not
So
gonna be
give us
50.
a sense.
so the
of-
It's
delta,
not- it's
so the
not
delta
going-
from the last year to the new year would be
I
350.
understand what she said,
Yep. It's not
Not saying
going,
anything.
it's not,
Please
it's not
don't.
gonna be $10,000.
No.
So
If it were 350,000, what would be the total
if it were
percentage?
350,000, the budget committee view, oh, sorry, wait a minute, I have to add it to both. No, that's not right. Oh, no, that's not right. Hold on. This is what happens when you calculate on the fly.
This is Darlene under pressure here.
That would bring the district view to an 8.8% increase, and the budget committee view to a 6.6% increase.
And so I think that's kind of a minimum.
So the difference now, instead of being
I
1.2, would be a
wouldn't
lot
use-
less.
I wouldn't, right,
Yeah.
it'll be a lot less, and I
Right.
wouldn't
That
use
0%
this,
is
because
a
it's
lot more
comparing some
reasonable.
different things. I would go
Right.
here, yes.
What do you mean?
Okay.
6.6 or higher, that's huge.
Oh, my
That
God.
is huge.
But we're playing catch-up with COVID. We're still not there. I mean, it's just the reality of the economy. We can't fix that. We don't live in a different place than everybody else.
With the increase in house costs and.
Look at home, yeah.
You know, it's.
We just had a 60% reval in Hollis, so, you know, that tells you where our.
I'm waiting to see my new tax bill.
Well,
Okay,
revals don't matter here, it's percentage increases that do. And
At any rate.
It is
Okay.
a valid point that we've had like a 70%.
But if I was gonna sell my house,
increase.
it's, you know, it's gone up since the last time they evaluated it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
okay.
Sure.
So to just kind of, it's 8:37, and to put us back to the assumptions that are in front of us, it would be adjusting based on current CPI and putting in two relief items, 350,000 for piping or energy repairs. I'll leave it at that until we get some clarification. And an adjustment for GMR and benefit impacts. And that still leaves us a little under $618,000 below the operating budget.
Yeah, those two assumptions, we know more by next meeting? Again, this
Yes, I would expect we would know more by next meeting.
There's a piping stuff. I mean, the
Yeah.
thing's gonna be done eventually, but they.
Right, but since they're waiting, since there's a facilities subcommittee that meets, and there are some, I guess, there's some information, you're all waiting, I'm looking because
Right.
three members.
I can't promise we're going to have that answer by November 30th because they have the month of November to do the testing.
Yeah, okay, so, but and again, it's just, this is why this is
Well,
iterative,
it's- yeah.
and, you know, we
Yep.
continue to
But
work it,
the-
and
but-
understand that if it were less, that would change, the district's view would change.
But once the results are in, the recommendations will be straightforward because we already discussed all the potential options.
Right,
the
their
last
next meeting is December 6th, so
Okay.
that is the, sort of
Right.
their deadline for recommendations to the board.
I think we have guidance.
Okay,
It's a-
so
it's a
I
high
will need,
guidance,
I will
but-
take so Brian, are you making a motion
I'll make a motion.
to set the,
Says the timekeeper.
co-op operating budget, preliminary operating budget preliminary guidance for the co-op budget of $28,071,084.
Yes.
Excellent. From Brian, seconded by
I'll second that.
Tom Whalen.
Thank you.
Is there any additional discussion at this point?
Do the board member person usually vote on this aspect of things? I mean, my instinct is to not vote, but I don't want to.
I would say historically, the school board member abstained.
Really?
Didn't Cindy abstain?
That would be logical if they did,
Krista?
Why?
because you have to present this to your own committee and
No.
discuss it, and you're
It's
representing
our
the school
budget.
board.
No, it's
It's the budget committee.
But he's not a member of the budget committee.
I am,
He's-
yes, I am. I am.
All right,
Yeah,
if
he's
you're going to
voting.
consider it a membership, then you should vote, but
Okay.
Yeah,
You can
I
vote your
would-
conscience.
I would-
If you agree with the
if you're not a
form,
liaison, that's different.
the breakdown we've provided and the process that's been involved.
So,
So
sorry, what do you guys are?
I'll restate the assumptions that got
Well,
us here.
What we're saying after tonight, if this gets voted past, is we're saying this is X amount that we're recommending as a proposed budget. Their budget is what? How far are we now?
We would be $617,925 apart.
I thought the request was 31 million or 30
It,
million.
well, that's just on the operating budget piece. So the 28,071,084
Yeah,
is our recommendation for the operating budget, which is the article
Yeah.
that the budget committee owns. When you add all the other
Oh,
things, it does
that's-
come,
gotcha.
to,
30 was including everything else.
hold on, yep.
Right.
If I added the same 350 to their 350, it comes to one number, but
Yeah,
you know what I
alright.
mean.
All right.
So because we're playing around with the bottom, hold on. The total budget right now for the administration and school board less, the HEA contract is at $30,382,937. Ours would be $29,765,012.
And that's assuming the 350,000 for HESA.
No, that's
No.
taking it out. That was
Taking
the
it
apples to
out.
apples to the form. If I add the 350 back in
It's, yeah,
and add it to the school
Yeah,
district
that's
side, that puts us just over 30 million. 30,115 versus 30,733.
yep.
I just
do
want to
it
highlight
600
these so I know what I
Yeah.
did. Okay. So the $28,071,084 is driven off of an adjusted CPI of 2.6% based on the September 2023 Bureau of Labor Statistics, and makes two add-back items for relief of $350,000 for energy repairs and $245,802 for GMR, to get us to $28,071,084, which is $617,925 below the school district's view.
Yep.
So I have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of recommending operating budget guidance of $28,071,084? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Abstentions. Okay. With Raul abstaining. Okay. Thank you. So,
I just want to know more information before I finalize my vote.
I view this
Okay.
almost like first read of policy. I understand, no, I'm serious, I understand the process you did, I have no fault with the process, and with the information available, it seems like it's a reasonable place to start.
Charlie, have you scheduled the December meeting?
not yet, no.
Is it- Well, we typically at the end of
We
December.
do have one in
Okay,
December,
all
right.
I just didn't know if we should make, if we push October, should we push November
No.
until after their.
So we're
December
lucky,
meeting?
we're lucky for November.
I mean, for December.
There are five Thursdays in November.
Right.
So we got the last one, because otherwise we'd all be here on Thanksgiving.
Well, no, I was wondering because they're meeting to hear about the piping and stuff, so it might be better to have a meeting with that information.
Yeah, and we can still squeeze one in right
Why
before
we-
Christmas. Because that's, if they're meeting December 6th, instead of meeting the 28th, which is a vacation week, we would back it up to probably the 21st-ish.
I can't do that.
All right, well, hold on, we'll get to the calendar in
Yeah,
a
no, I
minute.
didn't know if, what I was saying was the end of November meeting, if we push it a week and had those answers. And
Okay.
then have one at the end of December too, but that's.
Well, then that's a different conversation. If you wanted to push it, do we
I
then
know if
not,
we-
do
if
we
we
then
do-
not, no, but wait, do we then not have an end of December meeting and have a, like, mid-December, not end of November? Anyway, let's just hold on the calendar for 1 second,
Yeah,
because it does get,
well, I just think
Strange at
the more
this point.
information, the better for the next meeting, because of all the unanswered members, right?
well, we have, okay, hold the calendar. Process observer, I know it's 8:45, but we're going to get back
Yeah.
to the calendar in a minute. I do want to mention that there is an SAU budget subcommittee meeting on the 14th.
That sounds right.
I've shared with the current view with everyone. There were some adjustments made to change the NHRS percentage for the BA position, because there was a change to the certification level required at the state, which means we could save a little bit of NHRS if we shift to the lower employee rate, which I believe the governing board supported. And what was the other change, Kelly? There were
We
two
took out something and put it into paying for it through the fund
Okay.
balance, but I forget what
Yep,
it was now.
using fund balance, $45,000. Hold on.
Take a more of the mirror
No, we already have that.
Um,
This is something new. Oh, I know what it was. It was it conferences? No. Oh, it was dues. It was dues. We're going to take some portion of our dues out of the SAU budget and put that into the unreserved
So the
fund.
dues are for things like associations that the
Yes.
administrators belong
Yep,
to.
yep,
They're
yep.
based, usually calculated based on a percentage of
Yeah, so
salary.
we're gonna be paying the, whatever we're taking out with Title II.
Okay. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so that results in
Bless you.
Bless you.
a
What's that?
$166,000 increase year over year, which is a 7.35% increase. And the adjusted budget, because remember, voting for the SAU budget is like an all or nothing proposition. If it doesn't pass, there's an adjusted budget, which is a little different than a default budget. But that budget would be about $49,000 greater than the current budget, as opposed to the $167,000 greater. So I've shared that with everybody. If you have any comments or suggestions before the 14th, please let me know, because I'll be attending a Zoom and representing any of your inputs.
Can you re-email that?
Hmm?
I never get your mornings email.
I'll resend it. Okay, sorry about that, Dave.
No, no.
I'll check your email
Please,
before we.
yeah, well, why not?
Yeah, all right, I'll have to look.
Thank you.
I may have picked the old Dave Glenn.
I think so. He's a different
Sorry
person.
about that. But you got the one before.
I got October 30th.
Okay.
Evening one.
Okay. Let me just look at the agenda. Oh, school board update. Tom, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, we're pretty much looking at the same sort of things that you folks are looking at, that we're looking at here. So they're running pretty much in parallel.
Okay. So I'll return to the calendar item now. So the things we would have by the November 30th meeting, again, because the 23rd, which is the fourth Thursday, falls on Thanksgiving, we would have a view of adequacy. We would have the tax sheets, so we could talk a little bit about the tax impacts of the current budget and tax effort and where kind of tax rates went between the two communities. And we would have at least a round 3 of the budget. And while there, again, would still be things outstanding, that's, I think, where we would stand for November. And then December, our fourth Thursday is on the 28th, which is just like a school vacation week. And we typically meet in advance of that and would do Thursday, the 21st. So there's a suggestion that we wait till after the 6th.
I don't know if that'd be more, if that would make even any sense.
Well,
That
it makes,
would be-
well, but what we could do on the 30th is maybe have a little bit more of a discussion of where the facilities committee stands. And then any information that's available on the 6th could possibly be shared by our committee members
Okay.
with us, via email, so that we're prepared on the 21st.
Yeah. But it also, to me, kind of feels a bit like it's one line item.
Well, that's what I'm
We're
saying.
looking at,
Yeah,
Right.
You know,
yeah.
so.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of things Kelly will be looking at, and, the administration will be considering leading up to the 30th, so. Okay, so we'll stick with the 30th and tentatively say the 21st. Tom, does the school board meet on the 20th that week? Yeah.
Talking December, we're meeting on the 13th.
You're meeting the week
because,
before.
They're moving the Brookline meeting up a week.
Okay.
Could we meet on the 20th?
I don't know if I can see my calendar.
I can do the 21st, it's just, I've got a conflict that I'd like to resolve, but I'll prioritize co-op budget.
I've got a meeting on the 20th already.
I'm free.
That's fine, we'll do the 21st.
Okay,
Got one on the
we'll stick with
21st.
11:30
So
and
you go on 21st?
Yeah.
21.
So you're moving from the 28th to the 21st?
We were, yes, from the 20th to the 21st.
If you can do that, Darrell, it doesn't matter to me. I've got meetings 20th and 21st, so
Okay.
25th, are you around the 25th?
I'll be around the 25th. I'm not doing anything.
How about the 19th?
Is the 19th doable?
I'm clear on the 19th.
28th to the
Kelly?
21st in
I just have
December.
3 nights of
Is
meetings.
that a Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I believe so.
What do you,
The Tuesday, the
What about the
19th?
19th?
Tuesday, 19th.
Yeah, water aerobics.
I can, any of those days are fine.
Sure.
Okay.
Could we just meet at the place where you get the winter?
Sure.
Could we do, so
heat
is
is
the
so wonderful.
19th better, Brian? All right,
Yes.
we can do the
that would be
19th.
better for me if we can do that.
Tony, are you good with that?
Yes, I am.
All right.
All right. I think that's it. Let me just look through my documents one more time. We did that, we did that, we did that. Okay,
So the 19th at 6:30.
yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
I know I'll still be doing my last minute Christmas shopping. 'Cause I do it every year.
okay, process observer.
Yeah, we're way behind here.
I think we had great discussions, though. Flushed out some
I
things.
feel bad for Don
This
McMillan.
committee has been a little more contentious than we usually are, but that's all good. We had some really good discussion, though, and a lot of viewpoints were expressed, so that's all to the better. But as always, we all greatly appreciate you, Darlene.
Oh.
Being
Well,
the
I
circus
appreciate all of you,
ringleader
so.
here.
Okay, and
The
on that
lion
note,
tamer, there you go.
I'll take a motion to adjourn at 8:53 PM from Dave
I'll second.
by
Maybe
Brian.
6
All those in
months, I'm a
favor?
little excited.
Mhm.
Unanimous,
I'll abstain.
7-0-0. You're not abstaining. Thank you.